That's very interesting. Quality raters guide, like you mentioned. I think that's something I would add to the comments for our digital publishers to take a look at. That will probably help them understand what is evaluated and where they can improve. And that kind of leads me on to the next question. Like, what factors does Google look for while it's ranking websites for search?
Well, I'll take the generic approach and say it depends with everything in SEO. But as most people, publishers and SEOs would know, Google has over 200 ranking factors. So the different for different types of websites at different points in time, different parameters take a more higher approach and a precedence in terms of what factors are more important for you at that time. But for publishers specifically, EEAT, quality optimized content, and page speed optimization at large become the most important factors. We can talk a lot more about this topic itself. But yeah, what I see today, like one of the biggest challenges that publishers face is content decay, since a lot of publishers have a very legacy content. What takes a backseat in the race of creating more content in the pursuit of ranking for more keywords is that existing content takes a hit. Ultimately they suffer drop in the rankings, and this content ultimately stops performing organically for the publishers. So one key thing that publishers can definitely consider focusing on in the long term is periodic re-optimization of content, and especially publishers who are doing this silently in the background are the biggest winners in this game.
That's very interesting. So I would say, like you said, content refresh is what I would call it, right? Like, ensure that the content that you've published earlier is brought up to date with it. With news publishers, how, like, any thoughts on how they can do it? I know a lot of it. Say, is it advised to post updates for older stories? How would you say recommend if you were to just give a few tips on for news publishers specifically?
Yeah, so with like in the context of news publishers, a lot of times you would see that there are updates, periodic updates coming on certain incidents that happen, certain events that unfold. So making sure that you are periodically refreshing older content is definitely a thing that they should do. Again, what happens a lot of times is people are interested in the background story or the history of a certain topic. So which is why older content that was performing really well for you, doing some optimizations on that is a really good thing to follow as a best practice. Also you would see that a lot of news content unknowingly ranks in featured snippets. Yeah, so especially let's say if you are in the celebrity or entertainment or sports niches, you would do a lot of content about the partners of these players, their net worths, or let's say the assets they own, or any new purchases that they have, then their family members, etc., etc. But what's interesting is looking at what content is ranking in featured snippets. What are the rich snippet rankings that you have earned over the years, and how do you fare over those rankings after a certain interval? Because especially for popular personalities, entities, there's definitely a search trend. So you would see that this content proves ultimately, like even though it's originally a new story, this becomes like an evergreen asset for you. So, especially if you are into this type of content as a publisher, it would make sense to keep a track of these important assets, and then make sure that you are periodically refreshing this content.
That's a very that's like a nugget there, because I think looking at trends is very very important, because that'll kind of give you the right direction on what to refresh first instead of aimlessly going around refreshing older content to get it up to date. It's very important to use the right tool as well. So for the publisher folks there, I'm going to drop another link of the top tools that you can use for tracking trends. I'm surprised that it's all falling in place there, but we have created a list of the best tools that you can use to track news trends or trending topics in general, so that you can refresh content effectively as well.